intention for, or bring to mind your intention for this weekend. This is day 2 of weekend number 2, and it's such a short time together, but high content, a lot to absorb. So before we get started, I just want to take a moment to arrive, and arriving in your body, into your breath, and into your awareness. And if it feels comfortable, you can gently close your eyes or just soften your gaze and take a slow breath in and maybe a longer exhale out. Again, inhaling. And as you exhale, allow the body to settle in. As we move into the second day together, I want to acknowledge something that, the time that we have together is very limited, but it's also very powerful, because what you do with your attention, even for a short period of time, shapes how this work lands in your body. So I want to invite you to set a simple intention for today. Not something big, not something perfect, just something honest. You might ask yourself, what do I want to walk away with today? What do I need more of? Clarity, of confidence, or maybe understanding? And where am I being invited to grow, not as a teacher, but as a human? Yesterday, we explored how the nervous system responds under pressure. We talked about patterns, we talked about conditioning, and how states become habits. We began to see that this work is not just something that we teach, but it's something that we embody. And today, we'll build on that. Today, we're going to connect the dots between stress chemistry, like cortisol, reward and habit loops, like the dopamine loop, and how these patterns show up in real life for us and for the people that we teach. We'll move into a nervous system reset practice that you can use and teach. And we'll begin bridging this into your work and how you start creating your own workshops, your own voice, or your own offerings. And this is where the training starts to shift. From learning to applying, from receiving information to becoming someone who can deliver it. Take one more slow breath in and a long exhale out. And as we begin to come back into your intention, let it guide your attention. Let it shape what you take in. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know what is most relevant for you today. So as we take a moment, we'll bring our hands into the heart center. Allow your heart to lift and shine up into the hands. After your next exhale, let's inhale to begin with an Om. Ooh. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. That I acknowledge the teachers that stand before me that are embodied. I acknowledge the teachers that are not embodied but are before me. And I acknowledge the situations and circumstances in life that become my teachers. To all these teachers, I bow with namaste. So we're coming into cortisol, and this is such a big topic. And this, when we talk about the entire, when we look around and we see people all around us, when somebody's under high stress, not only does it affect, it affects the nervous system, but long term, it actually can be measured in our blood. That we can literally see somebody who has been under elevated pressure and tension, and their blood levels start to climb up, and it has such an effect on the entire body. So let me bring up the PowerPoint here for us. It's not got a lot of information, but it could be helpful for you to understand how to spell the words and just to see the effects that. Okay, can y'all see the PowerPoint now? Yeah, okay. All right. So before we can guide others through emotional wellness, we need to understand that what stress does inside of our bodies, not just the story, not the situation, but the biological machinery. This module is about cortisol, stress chemistry, and what happens when we are dysregulated and we don't even know it. We'll explore how the body creates stress, what chronic cortisol can do to the brain, how your nervous system broadcasts your emotional state, and why emotional energy leaks into the environment, and how yoga resets these systems from the inside out. This isn't about getting rid of stress. It's about learning how to regulate your internal chemistry so that you don't leak fear, overwhelm, and urgency into your relationships, into your household, and into your classrooms or your yoga space. So, what is cortisol really? Cortisol has a bad reputation, but cortisol itself isn't the villain. Cortisol is the mobilization hormone. So, we've talked about how sometimes we need mobilization. And cortisol does three essential things: it raises our glucose, it sharpens our attention, and it prepares you to take action. In a regulated system, cortisol rises, it helps you, and then it drops back to its baseline. The problem isn't the cortisol, the problem is getting stuck on. So continuously dumping cortisol. In chronic stress, the body stops getting the all clear signal. And this is where transformation work must begin. It's not in the mindset, it's not in our spirituality, but it's in our stress physiology. So when cortisol stays high for too long, it begins to change the brain. So the first thing that happens is the amygdala grows larger. And remember, the amygdala is our body's alarm system. And you become more reactive to everything. Neutral things start to they feel threatening for us. And small issues begin to feel so big. And then we have the hippocampus, which starts to shrink. And this is where our memory can become foggy. We lose emotional context, and everything feels like, oh, right now, right now. And then our prefrontal cortex, this is our logical thinking brain. And if you think about it, when you have something that's coming at you that's really stressful, that's the time that you really need to use your logic, right? But if the alarm system is going on, it's like it just remind yourself that it's one or the other can be working. So if the alarm system's on, your thinking logical brain cannot actually function. So it's harder to make decisions. It's harder to we talked about this yesterday. It's like when something is really happening for us, that's the time that it's like hard to actually pause when you need to, right? And it's harder to see nuance or possibility in situations because you just can't think it out. And this is why people in chronic stress aren't dramatic, but their actual biology has begun to shift. So yoga teachers must never shame people for this because our job is to help them unfreeze their chemistry. One, to realize that there's chemistry happening in the brain, that it's beyond what our thinking mind can handle. And so we know now that there's certain things that we can do to get the vagal nerve involved, and then their logical brain can come back online. So this is the part that changes how we teach yoga, is that your nervous system doesn't affect you, but you have to remember also that it affects everyone around you. So we talked about yesterday how the humans co-regulate. So one of the first things that we can do is by being present in with somebody who's going involved in this anxiety or stressful situation, and just literally holding that space and regulating ourselves. So that's good news for us, is that there's nothing that we can do to help them other than working with ourselves. And we already know how to do that, right? So we broadcast our physiology through, and we don't even know that this is happening, but it's through our micro expressions, it's through our tone, it's through the posture that we hold, it's through our breath pacing, it's through eye contact, and it's energetic pacing in the entire room. So your cortisol affects other people's cortisol, and this is biology. It's scientifically researched and shown to be true. So the research, it shows that the brain picks up on another person's emotional state in 39 milliseconds. So think about that we are picking up on somebody else's stress in 39 seconds. And that's all without the thinking brain engaged. The mirror neurons tune to the strongest nervous system in the room. That stress chemicals spread socially, especially cortisol and norepinephrine. And this is why one anxious family member can shift the dynamics in the entire household. One dysregulated teacher can make the whole class uneasy, why one ungrounded partner can destabilize the other. And the inverse of this is also true. So a regulated person can become a lighthouse. Others will entrain to that calm that you're bringing to it. So yoga teachers must become intentional broadcasters. Now that we know this, right, we can walk into a situation, we can see what's happening, and this is when we can change the dynamics consciously, right? So a simple regulation reset to fill the concepts. This is for you to try. So I'll ask you to sit up nice and tall and to close your eyes and just to notice your breath pacing. Don't change it. Just notice what it is in this moment. And notice the energy broadcast without speaking. Now we'll begin to slow our exhale by additional 4 seconds. So you're just inhaling what you've been inhaling, and you're exhaling, and then add 2, 3, 4. Allow yourself to just breathe in, to exhale out. At the end of the exhale, add 2, 3, 4. Now breathe in. Allow your exhale to exhale out. At the end of that, 2, 3, 4. Inhaling. Exhaling. 2, 3, 4. When you add that additional 4 seconds, this can help us regulate ourselves and the other person. You have to do it long enough for the other person to catch on. So it can't just be a few breaths, but you need to do the few breaths, and then before you know it, other people are starting to match your pattern without even knowing that they're doing that. So how high cortisol creates relational damage. Do y'all know anybody who lives in constant high cortisol? I definitely do. So it's like when someone lives in this chronic cortisol, high cortisol, they misread cues. Have you know, I'm around a lot of people, and you know, it's like, dang, that's not what I meant at all, but it's just picked up. And it's nothing to do with you. It's this is, you know, what's happening, something's happening for them and there. And then in those misread cues, they're assuming some sort of danger is happening for them. And they interpret neutral expressions as criticism. And then they start to respond from a survival mode. And this leads to conflict, to defensiveness, with withdrawal, a hyper independence, emotional shutdown. And not because they're difficult people, it's just because their system is overloaded. So chronic stress removes access to relational intelligence. So it's not like it's everybody around me. It's like I know me in the situation too. I know that I've been that person who has just misread everything and just tried to take it, and I escalate the situation. So it's not like you know, we all have this. So let's look at what we would do to reduce cortisol itself, the actual chemical that gets dumped out, because yoga is one of the most effective cortisol regulators ever studied. This is from studies. So yoga reduces cortisol by 20 to 30% in a single person. So because it works on multiple pathways. So the first tool that we have is by breathing. It lowers our stress hormone. So we talked about a few types of breathing yesterday. Do you remember what breathing techniques that we may have talked about yesterday? What is one of the most effective breathing techniques that we can use that we know just in the back of our head that we can pull out when the stressful situation's happening? What do y'all remember?
There's the three-part breathing, the Ujjayi breathing.
Just elongating your exhale.
Yeah.
Yes. So we know immediately that's the first thing that we can default to, and one of the first things that's studied, and that's one of the top things that you can do. The other pathway that we get to use as yoga teachers. Remember when I told you you had a seat at this table? I mean, you have a very important seat at this table because we understand movement. We understand movement, and we understand that it can release stored adrenaline. Where do y'all remember where the adrenal glands are located in the physical body? They they sit on the kidneys,
Oh,
on top of the kidneys.
Mm.
So if we locate the kidneys in our physical body, and then we were to do a yoga posture that affects that area. Can you think of yoga posture that might affect our kidney area?
forward bend.
Yes. Yeah. And just you just put it out there. It doesn't matter if you speak at the same time, but yes, forward folds. What else is something that's going to affect in that mid abdominal region? Some of the other things that where and now we're going to start thinking about a compression and release. A compression and release, because we know that this is the byproduct of yoga poses. That when we do yoga poses, it affects our internal organs, and we get this squeeze off of blood flow, and then we get a release of blood flow. Squeeze and release. What would squeeze in that mid abdominal area and then release?
I'm thinking bridge pose. I don't know.
Yeah. And what about just a twist?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yes.
So what I love about this is that, like my goal is to get into corporate places and work with them in short spurts of what they can do for chronic stress. But you could literally be sitting at your office chair and take a seated spinal twist with a breath, and that is going to compress and release in a particular area. And so we're not even talking about the energetics of what's correlating in the chakras, of the emotional responses that's in that area where we tend to store our stress. So this is where it gets really fun to put our yoga together, put with our breathing, and to realize the impact of what our movement can do for others. So when we have movement, it releases stored adrenaline that's dumped out by through the adrenals. That you get this alarm, so it sends signals throughout the body, and one of them is to the adrenal glands to push out chemical to make us fast, to help us get out of the way, to help us survive. And so, but we never, when it's chronic stress, the body doesn't get the notification that the event is over. So imagine that it's like constantly your adrenals are just having to work and they are exhausted, right? So then we also have studied what interoception can do for us. To not only are we going to, and we're just going to use this as an example, like an office worker who sits in the chair, who is under deadlines, pressures, stress, and we tell them to, take out 5 minutes, and I'm going to just have you inhale and exhale. Now, on your next inhale, press your seat down, elongate through the spine. As you exhale, begin to twist from the low belly, midsection, upper chest, twisting to your left. You can use your hand on the chair to help you get this twist, but keep pressing through your seat. Every inhale, take a long inhale. As you exhale, take a little bit deeper twist. Now, where do you feel this in your body? Where do you feel any little bit of tension? Do you have any kind of, anything happening inside your body? On your next breath, guide it into that space that you may be feeling this twist. Take the inhale into that place, and as you exhale, let yourself release whatever's ready to release. Now, on the next inhale, let's all look forward. On your exhale, let's release the twist. Do you feel the blood flowing back in? Okay, now, as you're pressing through your seat, take a deep inhale, lift up through the spine, creating length. As you exhale, let's begin to twist to the right. Low belly, midsection, upper chest, gazing out over your right shoulder. You can use your left hand on your chair to help you. As you inhale, create the length. As you exhale, begin twisting. Inhaling, exhaling, twisting. And then notice what you feel on this side compared to the other side. Begin to notice where you might feel any kind of, sensation, any kind of tension. Relax the shoulders away from your ears. With every inhale, can you feel yourself getting taller? With every exhale, can you get just a little bit more twisting in there? Now, the next inhale, look forward. And as you exhale, releasing the twist, do you feel the blood flowing back in? That's guiding them into interoception. You're taking them from this external environment and all the deadlines, all the pressure, and you, for a split second, have removed them from that alarm. And with that could lead to a longer lasting change for them, that they can step away from that alarm for a second, and then they have a tool on how. So just by the longer exhale, you get vagal tone. You're toning the vagus nerve. And so when we tone our vagus nerve, that can calm our inflammation down, because your body, with the stress, the cortisol moving throughout the body, it also triggers inflammation in our bodies. And then, just for yoga itself, like what we find in this situation of being in here together is that there is a community. This is what people get on Saturdays when they show up at the end. We stop the recording, and then there's a group of people there. And this is where they built that kind of community, because that community is a co-regulators for each other. They're from all over the country, but yet this little tiny community can co-regulate each other. So understanding that yoga doesn't just relax people, but it literally can change the chemistry in their bodies by doing these very simple and accessible movements. So this is why our style of teaching, when we use trauma-informed, the slow, rhythmic, intentional, matters way more than perfection in a pose. So sometimes it's just that. It's just encouraging somebody to move, and to move with consciousness and with feeling in it. And so that begins the change of everything. So how to stop leaking stress into the room, because I thought, like, this is one of the things that it started this journey for me. It was like huge, is when I watched something with Dr. Tara Swart, and she was talking about how cortisol kind of leaks into the environment, but let's figure out what our own baseline is. That you can't teach regulation if you haven't located your own way to regulate. And that's what we've been doing in here. And I feel really confident that you're beginning to know where your baseline is and get yourself to that place. But knowing the early signs of stress, okay? So one of the first things that's going to happen is that your breath it becomes short. It shortens. So, and then if you notice, so I'm going to give you some like homework. So one, to notice the quality and the depth of your own breathing. Two is to notice where your shoulders are in the space. By the time that you notice that you're wearing shoulder earrings, it's gone too far. So it's like I'm driving and I'm just like, oh my God, my shoulders are just so up here. And I'm not even really thinking I'm stressed, but obviously something's happening. But then the eyes begin darting. And so these are not just cues for yourself, but also when you're teaching a yoga class. When you see somebody's eyes darting all over the place, there's the beginning of like a little bit of panic, like they're starting to get into their own minds. Fast talking. When we start to feel a little stress, and we're like, oh, nobody will know I'm stressed out, I know how to fake it. No, because your breathing pattern will be one of the things that changes, and you may not even notice, but it's one of those things that people pick up on without even thinking about it. So one of the best things that I have learned about all of this in the presentations that I'm putting together is to slow my speech. And it sounds so painful coming from the presenter, is slowing down your speech. But the way it lands in who you're speaking to is a whole other thing. So it's like how I felt when I started to teach restorative yoga. If you don't know me from the past, I was a fast vinyasa, ashtanga yoga teacher. So when it was asked to have a restorative yoga class, and I didn't have a teacher for it and I had to do it myself, that was probably one of the most painful experiences of my life. I literally had to set timers because I couldn't keep my mouth shut, from opening up. I couldn't give them the pauses that they needed in that. And it's the same thing when you're starting to do like presentations. You have this information, you're so excited about, presenting this out there, and you just want people to get it. You can tend to talk fast, but it lands in the nervous system of others in a different way. This is also where, in your first few yoga classes that you tried to teach, that you rushed the sequence. You had an appropriate sequence set, and you were done in 20 minutes for, and that was supposed to be an hour-long class. That's kind of shocking, right? But that's just how we know that even now, even as a stationed yoga teacher, no matter how long we've been teaching, is that there's still room to be able to slow that down and let it land for people. Some of the best classes that I've been in a student in is when the teacher kind of just shut up a little bit, you know, but I didn't feel like they left the room. I've had teachers be quiet and I like had to open one eye to see if they were still around. And then I've had teachers where I felt so comfortable where I could close my eyes and I knew that they were still there, but I was allowed a moment to feel what was happening in me. So that came from a regulated teacher who's not afraid of silence, right? So before you start teaching, your entire world could be falling apart on you. But when you walk into the room, there's a few steps that you can take to be present in that moment and to leave everything behind. And that is giving yourself 4 long exhales, at least 4 long exhales, right? My teachers, and I've had the best teachers in the entire world, they told me to feel my feet and breathe. And so maybe I started the class seated. So that translates, feel your feet or feel your seat and just breathe for a moment, that pause. To drop your shoulders, to slow your blink rate, your eyes blinking. And there are times when I just simply put my hand on my heart. Just that there's a connection. And then one more that my own daughter taught me is that when you feel, very tense and you've got to go in and perform, you take one arm and you go across the body and you hold on to the opposite shoulder for just a moment. You can do that and you can kind of almost rock, but it orients you into so it's a cross body maneuver. So what this will do is will reduce the urgency of what you might feel inside. And then this will allow you to move slower than you think you should, to talk slower than you think you should, and this to let silence be medicine. That makes me want to cry because it's so true that the silence really can be our medicine that exactly what we need. So holding steady and understanding that you do not have to be perfect. You do not have to know this like the back of your hand. That just your presence alone and everything that you've already put into all of this, you have to trust and believe that that's going to carry you to the next steps and that we're always on the path to learning more, that we'll never know everything. So they don't need you to be perfect, but they need you to be present for a moment, to hold the space. So this is where I would like for you to just take a moment out and this is your own little journaling practice, but I want you to think about where you might leak stress. Not in a shame-based way, but just take a moment and just write down for yourself in your personal journal. You don't have to share this with anybody, but do it in a way of curiosity. You can ask yourself, is it in the tone of voice? I know sometimes my tone of voice. And remember that the higher pitch your voice, the more unintentional stress you're broadcasting. Okay? That maybe it's your pacing, the pace of your walk, the pace of your blinking, the pace of your breathing. I think about my facial expressions. I'm so bad at that. I show everything in my face, And so I know that my facial expressions will start to show things. And I do have a desire to fix it, not for me, but for people around me. So you have to ask yourself, like, is there a real desire to work on these, some of the things that you might notice? And I also noticed that for me, that my lack of boundaries have caused a lot of stress that's unnecessary. That if I could put up boundaries, loving boundaries, that I wouldn't feel this kind of stress creeping up on me. So instead of like thinking about how it's somebody else causing me stress, now I'm getting to the point where I'm going, okay, I have a choice. And why am I letting, this person create this environment inside of me? And then I remind myself, hey, I've got tools for this. And, so I kind of start to default back into my tools. So, and then the first thing I know to do is to slow my rushing down. Because when I feel that way, I start getting really pissed. I start, my movements are faster. The doors slam a little bit louder, So there's certain things that I can do to cue myself. And so I think about what things could look like if I were regulating myself in that moment. So um, just remembering that cortisol is not our enemy. It's something that's very helpful and useful, but we want it to be an adequate supply when we really need it. And we understand that if we're constantly leaking it and sending it out for, stress, that it may not be there when we need it. We can be overloaded. We can actually go to shutdown. So this is the biology of it, and that yoga gives us access to changing our chemistry from the inside out. And this has been, I think, the thing that has propelled me to do things that I'm uncomfortable with, of being seen and being heard, of doing this, because I just know that it can literally change the biology. And I believe in that full-heartedly. So when I regulate myself, I can regulate my classrooms. I can begin to regulate the entire household. I can then make changes in relationships with, important people in my life. And then I can also begin to hold space for my community. So it's not just about doing the poses, but it really is becoming a safe nervous system for myself and for others. And when I heard Dr. Swartz talk about this, because we heard about Alikia in her video, and she talked about the evolutionary, of our nervous system. And then Tara Swart was talking about how cortisol is a stress hormone that's released into the bloodstream, and it can be detected in our blood. It can be detected in our saliva and in our sweat. You can measure the cortisol levels in a sweat test. So trace amounts of cortisol can appear in our sweat. She said this, and I was like, it's not released in a quantity that it can influence other people's nervous systems through the air or skin, but yet what it does is when we consider cortisol leaking into the environment, it's more of an indirect thing, because when your cortisol is elevated, you're literally, your body changes. So you're going to have muscle tension increase. So you could do like on the sweat, your saliva, it's getting high in your body. But one of the things is that your facial expression. So our muscles are in our face. And so those muscle tension increases. And so we get this tightness in the face. We can pretend like we are okay, but people who are looking at you, they are trained. That is one of the things that we are all trained, is to scan the environment. And those are the unconscious things that we're picking up. Our voice becomes sharper or could be the other way, flatter. But something about the tone of our voice changes. Breathing becomes really shallow, movements become quicker and more rigid. So other people pick up on these signals through the visual cues, through your tone of voice, your timing and rhythm. And it's unconscious. We don't even know that we're picking up on all of this in our environment, and subtle behavioral shifts. So if you've ever walked into an environment and you've picked up on something and you can't quite put your finger on it, this is what we're talking about, this constant scanning that's happening, because that nonverbal communication is everything. And this is neuroception. And this is where we start picking up on the cues of safety versus threat. And yeah, it's like, so when I bring this leaking metaphor into my own brain, it just really helps me remember that there's this radiating off of a stressed person's, that humans are programmed to attune to microsignals, that it's subconscious and it's really quick before we can even think about it. And the nervous system starts to respond to these cues before you can even have a conscious thought. So yeah, that's cortisol in a nutshell, and why it's so important. And that's not even all that cortisol does. The blood pressure, it creates heart problems, like it creates a slew of other medical problems that will start to happen for people. And the other thing is this, like if you know of anybody who's gained weight in their upper abdominal area, that is a sign of high cortisol that has been in the blood for an extended period of time. The higher upper belly fat also correlates to high blood pressure. And so, like I said, and then your gut inflammation. So it's all about this. And the beautiful thing is that just by a breathing pattern, by doing some yoga poses, by taking 5 minutes out, 10 minutes out, the longer we could take out to step away from that, gives us the opportunity to reset the nervous system. And then we've talked about how it's repetitive, that you have to repeat to get the new habit ingrained into you to become your new way of being. Okay, now questions on any of this? Isn't that interesting?
The bit on cortisol, it can be found in like your sweat and saliva, makes me think like people can almost smell it.
Yes.
Because like, sometimes people have bad breath. Maybe they just have high cortisol. And which also kind of correlates to Ayurveda. They have practices where like you scrape your tongue in the morning to get all of the like bacteria from the night off. And so you don't drink your first sip of water and take all of that like stress or whatever back into your body. So it's really interesting seeing how everything relates. But the cortisol in your sweat and saliva really, whoa.
Yeah.
Right. And then,
It's real.
then you take, just like with anything in medicine, you take that one thing, right? And you think, oh, like the breath, right? But then you put more, what other of the things are they, more symptoms that can pinpoint. You'll be able to know if this person, if it's, enough to change the saliva and the sweat. And like, we know that pheromones, we operate on, it's like a real thing. So it's, and then you look at the other signals. It's like, are their eyes darting everywhere? Is their speech quick? Are they, rushing around? I know people that literally don't have any jobs, and their only life is where they shop and they just, they chill and go to classes and go get juice and all of that, but they're still rushing around. And I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like there's something, you know what I mean? It's like out of have character out of place. But you start to put all that together, and it's not in a judgy way, but like for yoga, what I've been trained to do is to look at people and to look at entire systems. So that one of my first things that my first love of all this was when I read Anodea Judith's, Wheels of Life, Eastern Body, Western Mind. And I started to realize that the body patterns, the body armors, the body does this thing. And then starting to look around and rooms. So I'm that airport watcher. I'm the one that loves to go into lots of people's spaces and just observe body patterning and then putting it all together. But it's not in a way that's judging anybody, but it's thinking about what kind of yoga class could I offer? And if I only ever had them for 1 hour, what's the most impact I could make on their life? And so you're just constantly reading people as the years go by and changing things up that might be opposed to benefit that, sunken chest, right? So now looking at these other clinical signs of things and knowing that chemistry is real and that, putting somebody with the legs up the wall. And there's a kidney press. Have you heard of that? Okay, I pose with a kidney press. That is, if you were to do, if y'all kind of had breakfast, remind me this afternoon in the yoga practice to add the kidney press and say, what about the kidney press? And I'll add that toward the end. And then that way you can kind of feel what it feels like for that squeeze and release. That's one of the most powerful things I can show you guys. So yeah, that's our cortisol section. And what is next? And we will have the dopamine loop. So we are at it's 10 or 9:51. So could we do maybe a 10-minute break and then come back? Do y'all need 10 or 15 minutes, do you think?
10 is good.
10?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll come back in about 10:02, somewhere around. Just be back, and when y'all are back, we'll get started on our dopamine loop. And we have some great practices happening today. So let me pause our recording.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as we return, before we get into the dopamine loop, first, I wanted to talk about some of the physical areas where we store our stress in the physical body. So we can start to think about what we're holding in these places, and then some of the yoga poses. So just kind of ponder on this a little bit, and we'll talk about it this afternoon. But in the hips is a storehouse for unresolved grief and buried feelings. In our shoulders, we can have the weight of responsibility and stress. In the lower back, we store fear of instability or uncertainty. In the jaw, repressed anger or unspoken words. In our chest, sorrow and unexpressed sadness. In the neck, suppressed truth and inner conflict. In the stomach, anxiety and emotional trauma. In the hands issues of control. And in the knees, resistance to change and progress. So
what did you say for back, neck, and knees again? I'm sorry.
That's okay. The back is the fear of instability or uncertainty. The neck is a suppressed truth and inner conflict. That's why when we work with the neck and we do, shoulder stands or halasana plow pose, that helps like squeeze out the poison, the hala that's just like stuck inside of there. So it's unresolved. It's like an inner conflict, saying what we mean and meaning what we say. And then the other one was what? Which one did you want? Knees, the resistance to change and progress. Those are just some examples, but basically our bodies are a storehouse. And then when you explore Anodea Judith's, teachings, she really goes into the physical body and where emotions can be stored. But if we just thought about it in very basic terms, it's like there's a lot of poses that you could incorporate to work toward your goal for that class, and you would want to hit a body part that is like a storehouse for that type of problem that they're having. So we're starting to think about all of this when we want to put together either a yoga class that's going to be really helpful for emotional wellness, or even for workshops and whatnot, where maybe there's a little bit longer section on education of what chemistry is happening, biology is happening in the body, and why you might feel this way. Because people really, when you're starting to talk about their specific problem, they really want to know that. And they show up for that. They listen to the information because it applies to what might make them feel better. This information to me is really vital, and it's put together in a way that speaks to yoga teachers. Really can, there's so many yoga teachers out there, but I don't feel like all classes are equal. I feel like there could be content in classes that can be life-changing, and I feel like some classes just can be the movement, and that's nice too, but I want to make a difference, and so therefore there's a lot of thought in the sequencing of yoga classes that I put together these days, and it's just a passion, right? But I just wish more people were getting access to this information. That's what I wish. There's not enough time in a 200-hour teacher training to teach this with all the basics that need to be taught. And the 500-hour, it could be added there. But so now we'll begin to look at another chemical, or the dopamine loop. Have you heard of that before? Have y'all
heard of dopamine?
The dopamine and the dopamine loop?
Is it like where you're just constantly seeking that dopamine, or like, caught up on TikTok like this?
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yes. So, understanding this, the basic machinery that's, driving us, our desires, our habits, our patterns, and our emotional reactions. And one of the main things is at the center of all of this is the dopamine. And people sometimes think that dopamine is like a pleasure chemical, but it's not. It's an anticipation chemical. So it doesn't reward us when we get something, but it motivates us to go after it. That's the distinction. And when we understand the dopamine loop, we suddenly understand why people get stuck in emotional cycles, why numbing becomes automatic, the go-to, that why when we overwork and keep ourselves very busy, it can actually be safer than resting. That so many behaviors that we see in people around us these days, it mimics addiction. And so we understand that yoga, especially this, lower, slow stimulus, breath centered, interoceptive type of yoga practice is such a powerful way to retrain our reward system. So today we're talking about it's neuroscience, giving neuroscience a foundation to teach emotional wellness in a way that's practical, it's compassionate, and it's really transformative. So it's a chemical that says, go get that, move toward this, or to seek what's next. And it's a chemical that will spike when it receives a reward. Not when we receive the reward, but when we anticipate something. So that's, as we start thinking about it, anticipating it, that's when that chemical goes up. So, for example, like the phone buzzes, the dopamine can spike. If you're thinking about a cookie that you've been wanting, it's more the thinking about it rather than eating the cookie that the dopamine spikes. It's imagining praise, approval, or resolution. When you imagine these things happening, the dopamine spikes, and that makes you go after whatever that is. When you're starting a new project, the dopamine can spike. So dopamine is the brain's way of pushing us toward survival. So it's about the seeking, and when you feel the pull of anticipation. So think about the things that make you feel the pull of anticipation in your own life. And where in your life do you have this, I want this energy showing up for you? It changes, or it may be something that's like consistent. But so the dopamine, it goes in this order. There's an anticipation, and that's when your spike happens. Then there's an action or a behavior. Then you'll get the reward or the relief. And then we return to a baseline. And then from the baseline, we drop below the baseline. And so then we get this craving for the next spike. And this cycle keeps us moving, striving, surviving. But in, this high stimulus world, phones, stress, urgency, conflict, unresolved trauma, constant comparison with social media, the dopamine can become dysregulated. And people find themselves caught in these little loops like compulsive scrolling, right? That maybe even emotional eating disorders show up here, chronic overgiving, overworking. There could be an anxious rumination. There might be a needing validation. This is also where perfectionism shows up, where we could have relationship chasing, and definitely where our people pleasing shows up. It's our reward system starts to get hijacked, and it becomes like an obsession for us. So for just a moment, you're just going to take a moment, and I'd like for you to just pause and notice, what is your brain reaching for right now? Is it that you want more information from the workshop? Is it from needing approval from someone or something that needs to be fixed? You think that, something's wrong with you and that you need to fix it. But what do you feel pulled toward at this moment? And when you take those moments out and you do gentle reflection, it can expose a possible loop that may be happening for you. I know scrolling is a big thing, so there are times when I've realized that, social media can send me down bad spirals of comparison of, all these things. So sometimes I just purposely don't pick up my phone because I know it's just going to put me in that bad place. But when dopamine is constantly spiking, the brain begins to protect itself by lowering our receptor sensitivity. And imagine if you could turn down the volume because the music is too loud, right? That's what the brain is doing for the receptor sensitivity. And so what happens is it creates what we call a dopamine fatigue. When we're in a dopamine fatigue, it shows up as exhaustion, where we might have numbness, the feeling of burnout, really low motivation. There could be emotional flatness. Definitely can be irritability. You can have so many great things happening, but you have trouble feeling joy about that. There could be procrastination and brain fog, because our nervous system isn't built for 24/7 alerts. It's not, it's our systems, as good as we think we are at multitasking, our system wasn't built to be multitask. And, there's constant comparison. There is chronic stress that may be like outer sources, but a lot of times the chronic stress is self-induced chronic stress, right? And then, you can have sometimes unresolved emotions. Remember, we said that everything that, causes us emotional turmoil, it has to be completed. That whole process has to be completed. Otherwise, it gets stored. And, or we could just have, a past traumatic experience that has created a hypervigilance within us. So our receptors, they can get overwhelmed, and the reward system will then begin to collapse. And this is where trauma really becomes important work. So when we want to look at what trauma's impact is on the dopamine receptors, is that trauma rewires our dopamine pathways. Chronic stress, abandonment wounds, emotional neglect, unpredictable environments, they all teach the nervous system to chase external cues of safety. So when we talked about childhood PTSD, there are sometimes environments that we could not get out of, and it really informed our nervous system. So trauma survivors often have fewer dopamine receptors. They have less sensitivity to healthy rewards. They have sometimes a higher need for stimulation. There can be trouble regulating anticipation, difficulty feeling satisfied, ever feeling satisfied. And this can explain why sometimes people overwork to feel like they're enough. They overgive so that they can have the sense of security. They can use substances or food to calm this dopamine reward. They get stuck in toxic relationships. People can fear rest. They can crave constant distractions. And they tend to have repeat chaos loops because the chaos can feel familiar. So, when we break it all down, it's just that sometimes familiar situations are easier to deal with for us instead of the unknown and chartering into new territory, because it's been our adaptation to what life has thrown at us. But dopamine pathways are plastic. That's the good news, and that they can be retrained. So yoga is one of the most gentle, effective rewiring tools that there is. And so why yoga helps? It's because it's a low stimulus, sustainable dopamine. So there's no intensity in a calmer yoga class. There's no spike crash cycle in a yoga class. There's no anticipation loop when we're doing this trauma informed work. Instead, you get this steady interoceptive awareness for a specific period of time where will be some slower breathing. Hopefully there's a predictable rhythm in the class that the teacher sets at the beginning of class, pacing. There's some safety cues embedded in this class and embodied presence. And then, the byproduct is a parasympathetic activation. So all of those things will give the nervous system a different kind of reward. And the reward is called regulation. And there's actual research on this. So we'll look at what meditation and breath work increase your dopamine up to 65%. So that's that's a big jump. But it happens gradually, and this happens internally, but so that the receptors are not overwhelmed. So yoga, the byproduct of it increases our vagal tone. It increases our physical body awareness. It increases our emotional tolerance for things. It teaches us stress resilience. It gives us a sense of agency and the ability to pause rather than react. So yoga, when it's put together in a thoughtful way, it can rewire the reward system toward calm, connection, and clarity. So there's a little breathing practice that we'll do, and just, we do this time and time again, and it can feel repetitive, but we add certain things because I want this to become second nature for you, to where it just becomes a default. Because when you are under a situation that requires you to do these things, you typically can't think it out. You can't remember what it was. So we're going to sit up nice and tall. And the breathing pattern for this one is going to be an inhale for the count of 4, an exhale for the count of 6. But you concentrate on softening through your belly. And we will be doing an inner scan of our physical body. And we focus on the sensations instead of thoughts. So this is... when you sit up tall for any type of breathing, you're opening up the lungs to receive the breath. And then after your next exhale, inhale for the count of 4, 2, 3, 4. As you exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, and concentrate on softening your belly now. As you exhale, begin to scan internally, inhaling and longer on your exhales. No need to count. But begin to notice inside of your body any places that feel tense or tight. And imagining your next inhalation moving into that space. And as you exhale, releasing anything that's ready to release in that space. And continuing to scan internally Any other areas, but also notice the areas that feel soft and spacious. Just remembering to slow your exhalations, make sure that they're complete. And with each inhale, notice that you have automatically adjusted to the breath that you need for that count of 4. And with every exhalation, you've automatically adjusted to exhale everything by the count of 6. Inhaling and exhaling. And you'll slowly begin to return to the normal breathing, just inhaling and exhaling as you wish. If your eyes have been closed, you want to take a moment to gently rub your palms together, generating heat in the palms. And you can gently place the palms cupped over your eyes. And then you can slowly begin to blink, opening your eyes. And then when the time feels right, you'll gently release your hands down. And then we return back into the space. But this is a feeling of what sustainable dopamine feels like in our systems, where there's this quietness, where there's this steadiness, and where there's this regulating happening inside of us. So when somebody is caught in a dopamine seeking cycle, what you will see in the person is a type of pacing, the need to fidget. Have you ever talked to somebody and all they talk about is the past and this certain story, the certain situation, that the ruminating over and over about that? Or they may have a high reactivity to just things that don't require that kind of reactivity, that they have the certain urgency. They're constantly maybe reaching for the phone. They're not expecting a phone call or anything, but they're just like this habit of reaching for the phone, but definitely a difficulty in sitting still. So we're going to do an exercise of what we can do to help break the loop. And so I'm going to get you guys to teach a longer exhale breathing. When we teach this, it's reducing the dopamine-driven urge to do. So in the moment when somebody is having this, a longer exhale breathing. So do either one of you want to just guide us through? I need the breath. You can
This is
give
the
me
one that we did yesterday, the same
yeah,
one.
yeah, and you can it's just simply on the inhale and the exhale, but consciously. And so what you're doing is when you are teaching it, you're feeling the pattern on the inside. There's something different before of receiving, and there's something different when you have to be the giver of guiding the breath. Okay.
Okay, so closing your eyes down. On your next exhale, inhale through your nose, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And continue your normal breathing.
So there's something that like different now. When you teach that, what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to inhale, and then when you're counting 2, 3, 4, then I'm going to have you'll say exhale, and you can count it out. But before you say inhale, I want you to do an exhale. Feel yourself exhale. You want to do that one more time for me?
Okay. All right. Closing your
Inhale.
eyes down on your next exhale. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And return to your normal breathing.
Yeah, so that you start to add that in when anytime that you are speaking it out loud, and practice, saying it out loud, but doing that. I remember when I was at in New York, and I had to teach a yoga class, and it was a packed class. They made me keep doing that over, and I was counting the breath because it's like you're holding the breath for 5 at the 5 count. They made me do it over and over, and she said, "You have to breathe. You have to breathe." And I was like, but I thought I was, but I had to do that audible. And so it just taught me, it changed everything for me as the giver of that breath. It was embarrassing, but I had to do it.
Yeah, it feels different. It feels different.
It feels different. Okay, Adriana, you want to give it a try with that, where you actually have to have the breath in there somewhere?
Yeah. All right, coming to your comfortable seat, grounding through your sit bones, keeping the long spine here, and just coming back to your natural breath. And on your next inhale, inhaling for 4, 3, 2, 1, exhaling for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhaling 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhaling 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And coming back to your natural breath here, noticing any new space.
Mm-hmm.
Almost
Yeah.
got
Almost what?
almost got caught. I could kind of hear it in
Yeah.
my.
Yeah, on the second one, I felt like it was the exhale, and it was like you were exhaling as you were counting, and that's so just be aware of that. That's really helpful. Now we'll practice on orienting around the room. So this is where we can get somebody to shift the attention from survival anticipation to a present moment safety. So we did the exercise yesterday where we named 5 things that we saw in the room, right? And so, Sandy, would you like to lead us in? This is orienting into our physical environment.
All right, sitting with a straight spine, shoulders back. Take a deep inhale. Gaze, actually, you can leave your eyes open. I'm sorry. Gaze over to your right shoulder. And we're going to slowly move the head all the way to the left side, scanning the room, noticing what you see, the lights, the textures. And then we will bring the head back to center. And take a deep inhale when you arrive. And a deep exhale.
I really like that with the turn of the head and then the scanning. That's really nice. Going to borrow that.
Thank you.
Good ad. All right, Adriana.
Taking a nice comfortable seat, keeping your gaze open here, and just scanning around the room for a moment, keeping your head straight forward, but moving your eyes around the room, not really looking at anything, maybe just the ceiling, gazing around, noticing any sounds around you here. Just noticing the space you're in, finding yourself here in this present moment, not looking for anything, just becoming aware of where you're at, and maybe starting to notice your breath here. Coming back to center.
Yeah, the breath out is really nice on that. Then just the calm breathing, the talking, that's really good. So just that may be something that you want to whether people you think they need it or not, maybe it's just something that you can offer as they come in for the, practice, and you start to ground them. It can bring them into the present moment. It's really helpful for them to arrive into the practice space. The next one's a slow somatic movement. So I'm going to just say, you can guide me. And I want to do a cat-cow, get some cat-cow guidance while I'm sitting at my desk. So if you want to give me directions on how to do a cat-cow from my desk chair, one of you can do it at cat-cow, and one of you can do a seated twist from the chair itself.
I can start with the cat-cow. Okay, orienting yourself here into your seat, grounding through both your feet, making sure they're touching the ground. And if they're not, that's all right. Just reaching your feet down towards the ground, grounding through your sit bones here, letting your shoulders fall away from your face, and letting your palms rest on your legs here. Just noticing how you're breathing, finding that center within you. And on your next inhale, opening up your heart, rolling your shoulders back, lifting your gaze up towards the sky for a seated cat pose. And exhaling, rounding through your spine, tucking your chin here into your chest, rolling your shoulders over, looking towards your belly. And inhaling, lifting back up here. Gaze comes last, shoulders roll back, looking up towards the sky, and exhaling, rounding through your spine here for that cat pose, looking towards your belly, and following your breath here, noticing how your breath moves through your body. And taking a few more rounds of breath, noticing what feels good. As you're ready, meeting back in center, gaze forward, grounding through your sit bones and grounding through your feet.
On your next inhale, we're going to twist to the right as you exhale, belly, ribs, chest, gaze to the back, holding on to your chair. Take a deep inhale and a deep exhale. Really feels that squeeze in the belly. Fill the breath. Fill the belly with breath. Inhale and exhale. One more breath. On your next exhale, we're going to come back to center and take another full deep breath. We're going to exhale and twist over to the left. At your own pace, inhale and exhale. Don't force it, just whatever your breath can hold. And then when you're ready, return back to center. And take a deep inhale and exhale.
That's so nice. So, and then you can also, so we'll do that again, but now on the cat-cow, add something about maybe being a spinal massage. Let's bring them into the back body on that, and where you feel like, give me some cues for the back body. And so you're going to switch, doing the opposite thing. And then on the side twisting, so that we get more interoception on this, to maybe ask them something about what they feel on one side and where they might feel that inside, and compare it to the other side and what they might feel on the other side. Okay, so y'all switch, and so Sandy will teach the cat cow, And then Adriana, you teach twist.
Do you mean add something like let your spine be supported from behind or something from that slide yesterday, or just
Yeah, well, okay. So when I would do a spinal twist, what you might say is to maybe pull the lower ribs back toward the chair behind you. So anything that's going to give them some sort of back body awareness, breathing into the back ribs every time you inhale and allowing yourself to exhale. Feel the shoulder blades moving down your back, adding anything that's going to support into the back body and give them interoceptive where they have to go in and feel what's happening inside. Okay. So those two things that just so that you can get used to putting those cues in there.
okay. Okay, I'm doing that one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You could do the cat cow one.
All right. I mean, with our spine straight, shoulders, roll them up, back, and down. Take a deep inhale. Deep exhale. And dropping your belly back and your chest forward with the exhale. Inhale, shoulders back, belly forward. And exhale, belly back, shoulders forward. Inhale. And just feel that your back body. Continue with your own breath.
Mm-hmm.
Feel that stretch along the back and how you feel supported in that. And inhale and exhale. And tuck the chin, tailbone down. Inhale. And back to center. Or notice how that feels inside of your body.
Oh, yeah. You can notice the movement in your spine. You could notice what muscles in the when you're in the angry cat. Notice the muscles along your spine that feel like they're getting a stretch. Just something like that, where we start to bring, because it's like multi-level, where you're bringing them into the back body, and that gives them some sort of stability. And they're having to go and feel what's happening inside of them. So yeah, it's different when you have to actually say it. It's one thing to do it and but to actually say it, it comes out different. So you have to get comfortable with that kind of adding that speech in there.
And I
Very
haven't
good.
taught so long, I feel like it's all brand new to me.
This is all different so don't let that get in your way. You've got it. That was good.
For the seated or even regular cat pose, I guess, could you use the cue of like widen through your shoulders, feeling like your heart expand that way through your back?
Yeah. And the space between your shoulder blades, feel that space widening. Anything like that's going to bring awareness into the back body. Because normally, like, when it's taught, lift your head, chest, expand the chest. We're talking to a lot of the front body. And so what we are learning through the nervous system is that front body is like giving, no boundaries. It's giving too much of yourself. It's right. So what we're teaching for the nervous system to bring it back into normal is to go into your back body now. So we want the movements based in from that place of steadiness and stableness.
Okay. And I can do the twist now. So coming into that comfortable seat, grounding through your sit bones here, making sure both your feet plant onto the ground. Taking a few breaths, noticing your center, noticing that length in your spine, lifting through the crown of your head. And inhaling, fully lifting through your chest. As you exhale, gently twisting towards that right side, bringing your left arm to your right knee, maybe hugging the chair behind you here, keeping your gaze forward, maybe over that shoulder. But as you're here, noticing how your breath feels in your body, noticing any subtle constriction with that twist. And notice as you inhale, finding length through your spine. As you exhale, maybe deepening the twist a little bit, noticing that subtlety in your body. And taking another deep breath in, finding length. And exhaling, returning back to center here. Taking a few breaths at center, grounding through both your feet, noticing your belly as you breathe. And inhaling, finding length, lifting through the crown of your head. Exhaling, twisting towards that opposite side, reaching your right arm towards that left knee. Maybe left arm comes behind you, hooking around the chair. Just noticing how this side may feel. Noticing any subtle differences. But still noticing that length in your spine with your inhale. And that gentle twist here with your exhale. Noticing the space created in your body. Noticing any new sensations, comparing this side to the last. Just acknowledging those differences, not bringing any judgments. And taking another deep breath in, finding that length in your spine. And exhaling, gently releasing back towards center.
Excellent. So this is like available to students, to office workers, but it does make a huge difference in somebody who cannot roll out a yoga mat, right? And then if we're sitting for long periods of time, the psoas tends to shorten in the front of the body, right? And so the front body is getting shortened as we're seated, but also the psoas, the hip flexors, it's the muscle group in the front of the hips. So it tends to it turns on when our alarm system in our body goes off, the amygdala is alarming. Your body's preparing to fight, flight, or, to get out of the situation, right? So this muscle group tightens and squeezes. If we live in this constant state of anxiety, what do you think is going to happen to that muscle group that has to be on to get you out? So it gets what we call locked short. So one of the ways that we can work with the actual nervous system through the physical body is to find length in the front of your hips. What poses do you think? And Stacy, I know you're here now, and so you're welcome to join in on any of the conversation, but what poses can we do that are easy enough to access that could stretch the front of our hips? Think about the easy, a lunge, okay? So you're going to talk me into a lunge. You may not be able to see me do it all the way, but but talk me into a lunge and talk to the front of my hips, okay? Okay.
From Tadasana, stepping your right foot forward about 4 feet, and then grounding through that front foot, pressing through your ankle, making sure that your knee aligns with your ankle, and then lifting up that back heel, keeping your hips pointing towards the front of the room and finding that length here in that hip. Keeping your spine stacked over your hips here, noticing your core, noticing that strength within you. Still pressing through that back heel, but not planting it down on the mat. Feeling that strength here in your hips, feeling that strength in your legs. Just noticing your breath here.
Mm-hmm.
Taking another deep breath in, exhaling, letting go. And on your next inhale, just stepping that foot back and moving on to the opposite side. So stepping that left foot forward, grounding through all four corners of your foot, making sure your knee stays aligned with your ankle here, and keeping your hips in line with one another, whether your hands land on your hips here, helping yourself out, breathing into your core, noticing the length in your spine, and pressing through that back heel, noticing that length here in your hip, seeing if this side feels any different than the last. Just noticing those subtle differences, keeping an awareness on your breath, keeping an awareness on that strength in your body, and taking another deep breath in, exhaling, letting all that air out. And on your next inhale, you can step your feet back together.
Very nice. And so if we were talking to office workers, right, we'd have them get up, stand behind their chair, and that, have them stand and step one foot back. I like that a lot. And then they could stabilize. And so when people are a lot of times when they're unsteady and emotionally stressed out, what you want to do is maybe give them some space between their feet for the balance, expecting that there's going to be this tightness in there, right? And so I like that a lot. It didn't require much of anything to get to that muscle group. And so there's the stabilizing where they can push back off the chair, anchor the toe, and then you're going to give them an additional to raise the arm up of the extended leg, and that could add on working with setting their gaze balance. So that was really beautiful. It's a nice way to get that stretch in there. I like that. Thank you. And anything, Sandy, any ideas on what you might want to do for the front hip?
If you're in a chair, I wonder if putting your ankle over your quad, like your left ankle over your right quad, and then leaning forward, would that, I'm not sure because I'm in a bed right now, but would you feel that in the hip or no? No, that would be the leg.
But maybe we could do something to where if they stood up with the chair, use my actual chair. If you could stand up and then maybe just bend one knee if that's accessible.
Oh, yeah, like bow pose.
Yeah.
But a standing bow pose maybe.
With that, but maybe guiding if we wanted to, so if they have that tight hip, its tendency is going to go something like this, but maybe guiding the knees to stay together. They can use a strap, they can use a belt, they can use a tie. If they can't reach it, something like that, maybe just to give them a brief stretch in there. But what that will do is communicate with the nervous system. It depending on who and what you're working with. But this is what I want is for you guys to think outside of the box. And how do you think about the people that are most stressed and the things that you might be able to offer them that doesn't make it the woo-woo yoga word. When we're working with this emotional wellness, and as I approach into companies, there's no shame in yoga, but there's sometimes they don't, when you say that, it doesn't translate into the corporate yoga world. But they're yoga movements, they're with breath, and there's all that intention in there. But so it's just helpful to break down barriers for people who have resistance to the word of yoga and what their preconceived notion is about it. But knowing that certain muscle groups will affect our nervous system. So Stacy, any questions on anything so far? I'm not sure. Okay. yeah, so just thinking in that line, because this needs to be accessible to everybody and different levels. The stillness holds, so we can do a hand to heart grounding exercises that we can use, just placing the hand on your heart and just feeling maybe the pulsation of your own heart. Feel yourself as your chest rises as you breathe in. Feel the belly inhaling, belly rising. And just let your hand rest gently on your heart, doing something, because that's also the cross body that works with the nervous system as well, of calming the nervous system. Yeah. All right. So when we are working with the dopamine loop, you can, like with your clients, is that you can let them know that their nervous system is seeking relief, like that from this stress. And so when you're guiding them in the poses to feel what's happening inside, and then the effects when they come out, you're giving them the pause enough to feel what the effects were of these poses. It's a nice place to add in, about the nervous system, maybe little tidbits of why it's helping your nervous system. So you can see how this doesn't have to be a full-on education workshop that you're teaching, where you're applying emotional wellness into the everything that you're teaching from this point forward. But keeping things positive for the students. And yeah, that's basically on the dopamine system, is that they're chasing something, the anticipation of something, but the habits that we might have are negative reinforcement. So just changing that into more healthy and positive anticipation needs. Yeah. Okay. How you doing, Stacy? How was class? Okay. We'll take a little tiny break here, and then we're going to go into the power of guided meditation. I want to talk to you about that, the integration point for everything. So we are at 10:58. So we come, let's do to 11:10, and then we'll talk about guided meditation, and then Ashley will be here to say hello, and then we'll get a little yoga practice in for us. So don't eat, and I'll see you in about 10 minutes, okay? Okay. So this is the power of guided meditation, integration, healing, and neuroplasticity. Now that you've learned the foundations of the nervous system, you've learned about safety, emotional patterns, and the body's responses to stress, it's really time to explore one of the most powerful integration tools that we have in this emotional wellness, is a guided meditation. So a guided meditation is not the extra add-in. It's not the cool down, but it is the place where the transformation can actually happen. So if the lectures helped you understand your patterns, and the asana helps you open up and feel those patterns, then meditation is where the nervous system actually begins to reorganize itself. Meditation is the integration point for us. So we think of guided meditation as the bridge between knowledge and embodiment. Information becomes transformation only when it's felt. So meditation is what stitches the lesson into the nervous system. And this is why. During meditation, the body shifts into a ventral vagal safety. and it creates neurochemical conditions for learning. So stories, memories, and emotional patterns lose intensity when we observe them from a relaxed state. The brain moves from the beta waves, where there's analysis, into the alpha and theta states, the states where emotional memories can be rewired. Guided meditation creates new associations, new internal images, and new emotional experiences that begin to override the old survival responses. So when the body feels safe, the brain becomes plastic, meaning moldable, adaptive, and capable of change. So when we look at the science of meditation, guided meditation activates the same brain regions involved in our emotional regulation, our memory, our imagination, our meaning making, our empathy and connection, our future planning, and the vagal social engagement system. So you're stimulating areas such as the prefrontal cortex, which is our decision making, intuition, and our higher thinking centers. The insula is where our interoceptive awareness, our felt sense of safety, is. In the hippocampus, that's where our memory, integration, and context of things is stored in the brain. The amygdala, it's the alarm system, is where emotional intensity and fear responses reside. The vagus nerve pathways is where we feel safety, connection, where we are then able to rest the nervous system, rest and digest. So meditation, especially guided meditation, it softens the amygdala, the alarm system's hypervigilance, and it strengthens our prefrontal cortex, which allows us to respond rather than to react. And this is why meditation is essential for our emotional healing, trauma recovery, and nervous system regulation. So when we talk about visualization, it's really interesting to note that the brain interprets imagery, internal or external, the same way. So when you visualize a peaceful place, a supportive relationship, a future version of yourself, a boundary held with clarity, a moment of confidence, a new story about your worth, the brain fires the same neural circuits as if it were happening in real life. This is how we start to build our new emotional patterns, through image, through having emotion with that image, through breathing and repetition. So this is actually neuroplasticity in motion. Meditation with visualization allows the students to experience a healthier emotional state before it fully exists in the real life. So the body learns it first, right? And then the neuroplasticity this is where meditation changes your mind. So neuroplasticity means that the brain changes based on what we repeatedly experience. So it's not about what we consciously know. It's not what we want to change, not what we intellectually understand. So only experience rewires the brain. So guided meditation creates the repetitive, emotionally charged experience of safety, clarity, of grounding, of boundaries, of compassion, forgiveness, empowerment, and maybe a future self-identity. And so the nervous system begins to operate from these new states automatically, like we don't have to think about it. And this is by using the guided meditation to get the students to envision, peaceful and calm. And this is how we can start to break some of the hypervigilance, the empathy overextension, our rapid emotional fusion, where we have rumination. We can break these old trauma loops, our patterns of collapsing, our patterns of overthinking, and our patterns of people pleasing. So, meditation changes the stories that we tell ourselves because it changes the body state that we're telling it from. So, the emotional imprint, this is why, another reason why meditation seals in a lesson, and that's why I've always used it, that every emotional wellness workshop has a very specific guided meditation that integrates the lesson that was taught that day. So, because the lecture is talking from the top down learning, right? So, you're giving information top down learning. In the asana practice, that's the bottom up learning. But the guided meditation is where we have the integration and where we can have imprinting. So the meditation is where the body and the mind can agree. It's where the nervous system is relaxed. The lessons learned in the lecture are absorbed as a truth for them, their own personal truth, what feels true for them. The movements practiced in the asana are stored as felt safety. And the visualization creates a new emotional memory in the brain. So this is the moment where students might say, something shifted inside of me, I get it now, or that shift is the neuroplasticity doing the work. So, you're actually, you can consider yourself like a guide to take the students on this journey. And it's a very powerful journey because it's their own journey. We're not telling them what to think. You're guiding them with some, maybe some suggestions, but they get to put everything together themselves of what they experience as pleasant or, in that way. But through the yoga philosophy, remember, like I said, this is, through yoga, but that incorporates all of the 8 limbs of yoga. It's not just the asana practice. We talked about how the physical body stores emotions inside of our physical body, and we're doing the asana practices, which will open up that stuckness in there. But in yoga philosophy, meditation is what, in the 8 limbs, the dhyana. That's where you have a sustained awareness is happening. In that sustained awareness, that's where you have the bridge to the actual self. And when I say the self, I'm talking about that true north, that place inside of us where, we're not looking externally for validation for everything. And so this process that melts old samskaras. So we've talked about how there's a habitual loops that may not be healthy. And depending on the amount of time that you've been having these habits, they start to get ingrained in it. So it's like a scarring. If I think about like a mountain that has, water running down it, it just starts to groove a pattern. So when people are wanting to change, the way that they're feeling and working with the nervous system, without the consistency, it's hard for them to change. And so what this can do is, in the guided meditation, it creates a melting of the old samskaras and allows the water to go down a different path, right? And create new grooves. And that, by creating a groove in a healthy way, and you're consciously working toward that, it gives you this freedom inside. So it allows the students to begin to rewrite what their inner world experience is. So we have this, in the 8 limbs of yoga, you have the pratyahara, you have the withdrawing of the senses. So when we're asking somebody to do the yoga poses, and we start guiding them internally, what they're doing is starting to cut off all the other senses that are constantly taking them outside. And then at some point they get into this focus, this steady focus of being inside of themselves. And then they can actually have where there's entering into almost a meditative state or a single pointed focus. And so the yoga steps, when we're looking at the 8 limbs of yoga, are that they parallel neuroscience. And so in neuroscience, we have the parasympathetic regulation, we have interoception, and then we have integration. So through the steps of ancient wisdom, that's, it's these are the steps of how to. Yesterday we had that big question of, it's like, okay, that's all great concepts, but I really need steps how to. These are our steps how to. This is where we start to draw the concentration in, the focus, internally focusing, right? So as teachers, how we can use the meditation through this emotional wellness is that, we are wanting to help the students regulate their nervous system. We're giving them agency to work with regulating their own nervous systems. And when they regulate their nervous systems, then they can start to process emotional material without overwhelm. So, and what I love about the yoga practice itself and the physical body movement, the bottom up aspect of all of this, is that you don't have to take the brain with you. So when you're physically moving the body, that the brain doesn't have to think out, oh, this, and give everything a story and a reason and all of that. And when we can reconnect with the body is one of our most powerful resources to working with our wellness, right? But we have to be able to connect into our bodies to feel what we feel and to get those kind of cues from it. But in the body, when you can learn to read your own cues. That's a place where you can experience safety that you may not have felt for a really long time. And the practice, it opens up the availability for them to practice healthier relational patterns, but it's starting from the inside out. So yoga through this process is we're learning how to develop a relationship with ourselves. And then this is also where we can anchor our new beliefs in, and we can release old conditioning. Because a lot of times, remember, I don't know if you've ever asked your parents this, it's like, why do I have to do it like that? And they said, just because that's the way we do it. And, there's no real, so that's like past conditioning that gets passed down. And so this is the opportunity to work beyond that and to understand why you're doing everything. But, being able to visualize being grounded and having an empowered future. And this is that, so when we're using this guided meditation, that we're not just taking them into relaxation, but into what we would consider a transformation. We're helping them access states that may not have experienced before, where there's some safety, where there's some softness, where there's belonging, empowerment, and clarity. But there's certain guidelines that we want to respect as yoga teachers when we do this guided meditation. So there's a few things with the trauma awareness that you want to note, that when you're guiding meditation in trauma sensitive environments, and that's what you can, use as a trauma sensitive, that you're never forcing them to have to feel stillness, that you can offer choices for them. So it doesn't have to be close your eyes. You can ask them to just soften the eyes, soften the gaze, that you can cue the breath, but you can tell them that, you don't have to demand it. You can suggest, to start to elongate your exhales. But you can also normalize that they'll have wandering minds. I don't know how many of you have actually sat in where, okay, we're doing meditation now, and there's so much pressure that you're supposed to be doing something. Everybody's got their eyes closed, and you're sitting there and your mind's all over the place, and you've got one eye open, just checking the environment. I don't know if that's been you, but it's been me. So when some teacher normalizes that the mind is going to wander, or that I'm going to want to fidget, that helps me feel like I'm not doing it wrong. It's not feeding one of my insecurities, right? And you can avoid suggesting emotions. Oh, you feel calm now. Or you can just say something like, when we're working with trauma informed, you may start to feel calm now. Adding those little tiny extra words can change somebody's experience quite a bit. That you invite students to open their eyes at any time, and you always have a grounding option. So our goal when we're working with the guided meditation is to keep them in the ventral vagal safety and avoid them wandering off into disassociation. So, yeah, guided meditation is the heart of this emotional wellness. It's where I feel that the healing becomes experiential for the students, and they don't just understand the lesson, they get to feel the lesson. And what is felt it becomes real, and what is felt, it can become embodied, and what is embodied can become lived for them. So meditation is where we just don't learn a new way, but we actually become that. So any questions on the meditation and what neuroplasticity is and how it parallels into our neuroscience?
You were saying that we could give grounding options. Do you know maybe
Yeah.
maybe like feel your feet, or what are some options, some
What I,
examples?
for me, what has become really big at this time has become getting them into their back body.
Mhm.
So what I cue for this is to feel all the support that is beneath them. And so so before I actually start the guided meditation, I think about putting them in Shavasana, and I have them put the props underneath the thighs or the knees, and you can have blocks underneath your heels. You can have a little pillow for your head, but that's the first thing, is I get them all set up for comfort. And then I start to guide the physical body, the toes, the feet. And then I suggest maybe feeling all the support that is beneath them, the places where their body meets the ground. So those are grounding options that they can always anchor back into. And, where they don't have to close their eyes, but they can just soften the eyes.
Okay.
And all of those are good anchors for them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Stacy, any questions about the materials so far? Okay. And the power of visualization. Have any of you ever used visualization in your classes as an ending on it? So just being able to transport, and so when I do these workshops, it takes a while to get the lecture together. So when I'm working with putting together the lectures, I have certain points that I want to meet and teach to. But once I get the whole lecture put together, that's when I start putting the guided meditation together. And I want to make sure that the guided meditation speaks to each of the important teaching points, and then it reintegrates it into that final part of it. Okay, so I'm going to move you guys into a guided meditation now so that you can actually feel. So you get to lay down. And so what I would love for you to do is put yourself into a Shavasana position where you feel completely supported, if that's available for you to do.
I'm
And
at
so
my office today and I can't
that's
get
okay.
on the floor anywhere, so I could just listen.
That's all right. But you can get yourself comfortable. And so we're going to use the one I used for our let's see, guided meditation for panic. Okay. When we've taught about panic, when panic hits, and how to relieve that. So you'll allow yourself to lay back or to get as comfortable as possible and just begin to feel all the support that is beneath you. Even if you're sitting in your chair, just allow yourself to settle in and settle back and let yourself just simply arrive. Arrive into where your physical body has settled. And so that's not in your thoughts, but just in your physical experience of settling in. And feel all the surfaces that are beneath you, that are supporting you, and that are holding you. There is nothing to do right now. There's nowhere that you need to go. Just notice that you are in this moment and that you are here. Now, gently begin to bring all of your awareness to your breath. And there's no need to change it. Just observe your breathing. Observe your natural rhythm, your inhalation, and your exhalation. I'm breathing in. I'm exhaling out. Noticing the temperature as you inhale through the nostrils, and noticing the temperature as you exhale out through your nostrils. Now, if it feels comfortable, begin to slightly lengthen your exhalations. And not by forcing, but by allowing the breath to soften on the way out. Inhaling gently through the nose, and exhale just a little longer. Let the exhalation be unhurried. Breath in, exhaling out. And with each exhale, invite the body to soften. As you exhale, feel your jaw unclenching. Feel the shoulders begin to release. And feel the space between the eyebrows begin to soften. No effort, just permission. Now begin to notice all the points of the contact, your body meeting the ground or the chair, the weight of your heels, the weight of your legs, the weight of your hips, your back, and let yourself feel supported. You don't have to hold yourself up right now. If it feels okay, bring awareness to your feet and notice any sensation, the warmth, the coolness, pressure. And gently imagine your feet becoming heavier and more connected, as if they could root you down into the ground beneath you. Now begin to expand your awareness to the space around you, even with your eyes closed. Begin to sense the room. Begin to sense the quiet. Begin to sense the stillness. And let your nervous system begin to register that there is no immediate threat here. If at any point you notice sensation rising, perhaps your heart, your breath, or your body, just notice without needing to change it. without labeling it as good or bad, but just simply begin to notice that something is moving through me. And now gently begin to remind yourself, this is what the body does. It senses, it responds, and it settles. Sensations arise, they peak, and they pass. If you notice even small waves of activation, see if you can stay with it just for one more breath. And then another. Just like in practice, staying with the sensation without needing to escape it. Now bring your awareness back to your breath and inhale gently into slow and steady exhale. Let the breath be your anchor. Each exhale signaling to the body it's okay to soften. Breath in, breath out, softening. Now quietly begin to introduce this thought, not as something you have to believe, but just as something that you may want to consider. My body is trying to protect me. My body is trying to protect me. Even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels overwhelming, there's nothing broken here. Only a system that has learned how to respond. And now another thought. In this moment, I am safe enough. In this moment, I am safe enough. Not perfectly safe. Not forever. But just this moment. Safe enough to breathe. Safe enough to rest. And safe enough to be here. Let that land gently. There's no force. There's no pressure. Just allowing your system to experience, even briefly, what safety feels like in the body. Now feel again the support that is beneath you, the rhythm of your own breath, the steadiness that is available, even if it's subtle, even if it's a small shift. And begin to recognize this is always something that you can return to, not by controlling everything, but by reconnecting to your breath, reconnecting to your body, and reconnecting to this moment. Slowly begin to deepen your breath, gently inviting a little movement back into the body. Maybe a little movement in the fingers, maybe a little movement in the toes. Without rushing, as you begin to come back Take a moment to notice what feels different, even slightly. As you continue to stretch, maybe stretching your right side a little more than the left, left side a little more than the right. You're not trying to eliminate activation, but you're learning that you can feel and still be safe. When the time is right, you begin to bend the knees, feeling the feet connecting to the ground, and allowing yourself to just curl over to your right side and curl up into a little tiny ball. Just allow yourself to rest in this moment where you're curled up, a little cocoon, and keeping any of the relaxation that you may have gained. You'll gently turn toward the floor. Use your left hand and right arm. Begin to press yourself up. Let your head be the last thing to come up. And as you take your seat, feel yourself firmly grounded. As you press down through your seat, extending up through the spine, just notice any space that has become available internally. The space inside where the breath may move a bit easier, where the lungs can receive the breath a little more fully. A space where you can exhale and empty. Space where in your chest and your heart, where expansion may have opened. And as you acknowledge all this beautiful light that's inside of you, take a moment and we'll just bow to our heart center. Namaste. We'll return to our seats. And so what we will do is you can lay there for a little bit longer if you'd like, but we'll be setting up our space for a practice. But the practice actually is going to be for the nervous system, and we'll be starting in a laying down Shavasana-like position. It's a gentle practice. There's going to be some movement, but I do invite you to take care of yourself in that. When we set up a practice, you could use a chair for the practice if you're feeling a bit unstable or working with injuries. But like I said, bolsters and Shavasana stuff. We'll be doing some of the poses that we talked about yesterday in the practice. And then in a few moments, Ashley will be with us. So I just invited her to come introduce herself to you guys. She's one of the people that I run a lot of things by. And so it's 11:47. So I'm going to be back at 12 and we'll bring her on. And then from there, we'll move into our practice. So as you can see on the schedule, we have our lunch from 1 to 2. And then so I'll see you in a minute. Are there any questions on this? Go back. Okay, we have Ashley Ann with us today, who is a trauma specialist, a neurocounselor, author, educator, a TEDx speaker, and the founder of Gravity Point Institute. She has an MA in counseling psychology and a PhD in counselor education. She's certified in neurofeedback and Reiki and is graduated from our yoga teacher training in 2017. It's such a pleasure having her. And her work centers around a framework of that blends neuroscience, yoga, quantum mechanics, metaphysics, and centers stress and trauma resolution as a practice to prevent disease disorder. And her highest hope is that sharing her work helps practitioners and everyday people heal themselves, so together that we can heal the world. She's making the tools that she developed from her research affordable and accessible through the book called Gravity Point Anthology. And I've invited her here today to talk about her first book that has just been published this month. So it's just... I'm so grateful to have her visit with us, and she comes to workshops here and there. And just, it feels so sometimes what we're doing is it's just scratching the surface of neuroscience and the ability and the healing tools that we have. So I'll let her speak a little bit about it, but she's been a huge resource in my life, and I'm just really grateful. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Since this is an advanced teacher training, I feel like you all will probably understand this, but yoga teacher training like really changed my life, and Michelle and Gretchen, and like having the network of folks. So I will tell you, so my book was revised. We'll get to it in a second. But it was really a cosmic moment. I was sitting at a cafe and I had just put down the book, literally. I was like done editing it. And then my phone went off and it was Michelle saying, "Hey, will you come talk about the book at an upcoming training?" I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, she must be listening somewhere, somehow," because she got that timing creepily well. Um, so I'm really happy to be here just for a few minutes in your teacher training. I know you're all doing the advanced work. And so I'm just going to say a little bit about myself to say why it's so important for me to be talking to you, like why I think that you in your position is exactly who needs to heal themselves the most, needs to have access to all the research and all the information that you can possibly get your hands on. So I probably had my first yoga class in like 2007, 2008 or something like that. And then I started my career as a trauma therapist and I burnt out a lot because, as it turns out, I'm like super sensitive. Are any of you spongy and empathic and like picking up on people's energies all the time? Yeah, that was me. And I got really sick. Like, I got really sick. And I was forced to kind of look at the neuroscience research, a lot of it that you're actually getting in this program now. And that's what saved me, like understanding the science of how I pick up on other people's energies, how emotion actually works, and all of that. And then I went and got my PhD at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, ended up at Gretchen's studio at the time first and deepened my practice, and then fell into the loving arms of Michelle, who then gave me my certification. And one of the reasons why I did the certification is because I was looking at neuroscience and I knew enough about yoga to know that they were saying the same things with different language. And I got really excited about that. And doing the yoga teacher training helped me deepen and connect what I was seeing in the neuroscience to yoga. And then I continued to connect that to quantum health and quantum mechanics, and then also metaphysics. And it's been a really long journey. Like, it's been a really long journey. My whole life fell apart when I went into my yoga teacher training, which is kind of a funny story I tell, because Michelle, on our first day, she was like, "This will change your life." And I was like, my life can't possibly change anymore. And then it fell apart. So, and I think it did because I had yoga and I had like this safe network that you're all a part of. Um, but it's been a long journey since 2017 when everything fell apart, trying to put it back together, and also figuring out how do I make what I know accessible, because it saved me and it saved so many clients and students that have been in my world. So I was a university professor for a long time at 3 different schools and had a license to practice for a long time, but I realized that there's a bigger problem. And I think it's like twofold. One, I don't think that healing is as easy as it should be. Like, I think there's a lot of guesswork, especially when you start unearthing your trauma. And especially if you're doing like restorative classes, you're probably every now and then seeing students who are waking up to that. And you're picking up on that, and it's like in your sphere. And I really wanted to take the guesswork out of trauma work so that anybody could pick up a book and heal themselves. Like, that's what I really wanted to do. I didn't want people to need me anymore. And then the other problem that I'm trying to solve is that I think that you folks in the yoga world should be able to support people and talk to other holistic practitioners. Like, I think that you should have a framework that helps you connect with your client's acupuncturist and their wellness coach and their energy worker. Like, I think that we're all in separate silos, but we're doing all the same work. And conventional care already has a system. If you have an oncologist and a cardiologist and a gynecologist and like, et cetera, they all talk to one another. Like, they have a framework. And I have that for us. And so I have this huge paradigm that connects neuroscience and yogic philosophy and quantum mechanics and metaphysics, so that all someday we will all be able to talk to one another and coordinate care and be just as legitimate and full of authority as conventional care is. So I could have gotten this workout into the world in a lot of different ways. Could have continued my one-on-one coaching. I could have tried to fight with universities and make change there. But I just felt called to the universe to make it even more accessible. I don't want people to have to pay me thousands of dollars to be trained in it. I don't want them to have a limitation of time, and I want them to do it in their own way. And that is why I decided that instead of putting my work behind closed doors, I was going to put it in books that people could buy whenever they needed. So it's a book series. And so like book 2 will be about connecting the neuroscience. Book 3 is going to be about yoga, 4, et cetera, et cetera. But this first one that I wanted to share today is actually just the step-by-step method that anybody can use to heal their trauma right now. Like, you don't need a neuroscience background or a yoga background, even though I know all of you are getting it. It's really just a step-by-step process that I took from 15 years as a trauma therapist and tried to make it very, very simple. And I designed this for everyday people, but I also designed it because I was a practitioner who burnt out and was picking up all of my clients' stuff, and it was killing me. And I think that you probably know this. If you are a bedrock of your community and supporting everybody else, as soon as you start suffering, like, you can't take in and do the work that you are divinely designed to do. So that's the book. This book is for anybody who wants to heal themselves without having to do a lot of guesswork, without having to dig up their trauma unnecessarily, and without feeling like they have to spend a lot of time and money to do it. So thank you for letting me share. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Will you put the website and the links maybe in the chat so they can get that if they'd like? And I told them the story about our Yoga Nidra, my first Yoga Nidra class, and that would be kind of be fun to talk about, because it was just such an experience for me as a yoga teacher. And when you look at somebody like Ashley, it's like she's educated, she's got her stuff together. I just wouldn't have ever assumed. And like, everybody's got something and going on, and we never know like who's coming across our path and just ends up in one of our public yoga classes. So we just never know how powerful are the things that we say and the things that we are teaching, how much somebody may need that's in your presence. And it's really not us, so yoga has a way of working its way in and to work with the healing, but we do our best to learn how to present this ancient system of healing and yoga practices, right? But it does all of the work. But it was just, I look and everybody's calm and peaceful. And like I told y'all, I really wanted to extend that experience, because I just, from the outside looking in, it just looked so wonderful. But from the inside out, there was a whole other turmoil that was happening. And it wasn't necessarily, it may have been a few words that were said, but it's just the process of what kind of yoga does. And I tell everybody that this does kind of deconstruct our lives, when we study yoga and all the behind the scenes of it. And in a way, it makes us look at the things that are hardest to look at, and to unpack that and to rebuild it through a support system. But anyway, just I hope you don't mind me sharing that story, but it
No,
was
I love
just so
that.
impactful for my life. And it was like, as a yoga teacher.
Which I didn't know at the time. It's only now that I've known Michelle for a while that I knew it was her first one and that she had had that reaction, because I just felt safe. But remember at the beginning, I told you my life fell apart. That was the moment it happened. Like that, I can pinpoint it to that Yoga Nidra, because we were at an in-person retreat, and it was the first time I had done Yoga Nidra, and I had just gone to a really dark place. like in the yoga nidra, I just felt like there was no point of living anymore. Like, what am I doing? There is no point, right? And I woke up, and because yoga and the community that Michelle had created, I felt safe enough to say that. I would think that about 95% of people probably wouldn't bring it up. But I did. And I do think that is the power of yoga, just by being sort of a steward of the work. Your energy naturally allows people to ascend to meet you. And so as you are raising, everybody else is rising up around you too. And I will tell you that Michelle handled it very well. She was very disclosive about, what was on her mind and what was coming through her. And that is what prompted me to end an engagement. I left my apartment, like all the things, right? But the reason I knew what to do is because I was already doing this work. I didn't feel lost when I got triggered because I had this. And I watched so many people get triggered, especially when they're doing really good work, whether it's like a yoga class or they start seeing a chiropractor or they change their diet, and things kind of get shaken up and they feel worse for a second, and then they don't know how to deal with it. And so then we go back into our old shells. We go back into old relationships. We go back into old patterns. We go back to the cookie jar, like whatever it is. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I've been doing this work for well over a decade. And this is why I don't feel like my life is pointless, why I do take every moment that is really hard and overwhelming and turn it into something beautiful. So that moment with Michelle, when it happens to you with students, you don't have to send them to the book, but like, this is what I wish somebody would have handed to me at that moment.
Mhm.
Like, you are triggered. It's not a bad thing. Here is the step-by-step process. And I wrote this book so that you don't have to read the whole thing. Like, I have it at the end, the step-by-step process. And I say that right at the beginning. Like, if you're too triggered, don't read it. Just skip to these pages and you can just do it right away, right now. So that's why I'm passionate about this book. It's because so many times I wish it would have been handed to me.
Yeah, and I just thank you. It felt like it was like she's my teacher, and it was like that circumstance was put in there. So you don't know what's going to come across once you have this information. It's stuff it's things that you need to share in the way that you can, but from a regulated place and holding space. And that's why it's so important. You just never know. But it's just I'm super grateful for the experts that have come through my life, and they've been teaching me along the way and kind of pushing me to push myself to understand a little bit more and to hold that space. And that's what y'all are doing, is you're learning, you're scratching the surface, and you're understanding there's so much more to this yoga practice, and it can open up energetics. And then when it does, what do you do? And so I want to make sure that you have the resources that you need to reach out, to Dr. Ashley Ann or to Alika, just whoever, wherever. But I want you to have resources to be able to reach out for help. And she's helped quite a bit. Ashley's been with a couple of the students who've been through the wellness with big losses in their life and things like that. So, thank you so much, Ashley, for being with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for continuing to grow the community. It brings me so much comfort that all of you are in here, because I just know you're doing such good work, and that's how we heal the whole world, one person at a time.
Well, thank you. Do y'all have any questions or anything for her? All right. Oh, and there's YouTube stuff that you have, right? Did you put that
I
link?
have a podcast. Yeah, I have a 10-episode series on my podcast about the work. So for people who
Okay.
are ready for the book, or like to listen, if you go to my website, you'll find that. So those links will get you there.
Awesome. Okay, Ashley, thank you so much, and I love you very much. Good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Love you too. I wish you all well as you continue. Bye.
Aw, bye. We'll see you later. Okay. All right, y'all. We are gonna move over to our yoga mats and just do a little bit of movement. And I'm so glad you were able to meet her. So you're gonna go lay down on your backs. And while you lay down on your backs and get comfortable, this is a nervous system reset practice. And basically, this practice is intended to reduce limbic overactivation, increase your ventral vagal tone, establish back body support, encouraging bilateral integration, and creating safety for narrative updating. And the neuroscience rationale of why we're starting laying on our backs is that when somebody's working through this emotional wellness, that establish safety signals before asking for students to bring awareness in. And so when we establish the safety of them laying in this supported Shavasana type position, it prevents people from going off into disassociation or premature introspection. So I'd like for you to lay down and have a bolster underneath your knees if you have it. If you have a weighted blanket, maybe placing that on top of your pelvis. And this time I'm going to ask you, normally when I have you laying down, I have palms up, but I'm going to ask you to turn your palms down. And the reason why I have the palms down is for grounding. So as you lay back and you allow the palms to be facing down, feel the back of the body being supported in all the places that the back body is supported. And let go of any effort to relax. And then allow yourself to just simply come into your breathing. The breath in and the breath out. If and when you would like to, you can gently place your hands on your side ribs as you're laying back. And as you breathe in, begin to feel the rib cage expanding, belly rising, the rib cage expanding. And let your exhale out naturally. But with each breath in, expansion. With each breath out, the ribs knitting closer together. Natural rhythm. But as you're breathing in and you're exhaling out, now allow the breath to widen you from behind. All the space behind you. As you breathe in and you exhale out, let the breath widen you from behind. So the back rib breathing that we're breathing in now stabilizes our posture. It decreases our forward collapse threat pattern, and it increases our vagal tone. Now, slowly begin to bend your knees, placing your feet onto the floor. Your feet about hip bone distance apart. And as you place your feet onto the floor, just notice the places of your back that are connected to the earth. You may feel a little space between the floor and your low back. And begin to gently put a little pressure into your feet. And as you put the pressure into your feet, try to bring your low back to touch the floor. And then release the low back into neutral. Pressure in the feet. And there's like a little tilting of the toe and then back. Taking a moment to create a little rocking rhythm of the pelvis where you're anchoring and you feel the low back connect and gently lift. This is a gentle anterior posterior tilting where it's slow but repetitive. So the rhythm begins to regulate more effectively than any kind of stretching. This can also help discharge low-grade sympathetic activation. Be aware of the places in the back that connect to the earth. And then you'll gently start to slow the rhythm and slow the rocking till eventually you become still. And when the time is right, you'll gently turn over onto your bellies into a child's pose. So the big toes might be together, the knees can be slightly wider apart. There's a deep hinge at the hips, and you're bowing down in the center. Just allow yourself to rest in this child's pose for a moment. And if your forehead can connect to the earth, or you can even bring a little block underneath your forehead so that it can make a connection, you'll very gently just turn your head side to side and let the pressure roll across your forehead. It's nice and easy. I'm using my hand to feel it as I sit in my seat. And then you'll start to slow that rocking and rhythm movement in a child's pose that becomes a little more still. And then when the time is right, you'll rock up into your hands and your knees. And the hands underneath your shoulders, wrist underneath your shoulders, the knees hip bone distance apart, maybe curling the toes under, and taking a moment here, and we'll start to sync up with your breath as you inhale and exhale. You're on all fours now. But now, as you inhale, begin to lift your head, chest, seat up, arching the back and widening the space between your shoulder blades. As you exhale, start to bring your head in, your pelvis comes in, pushing the floor away. Begin to round your back, the middle of your back, the upper back, squeeze all the air out. Very gently, slowly rolling through the spine like a massage, lifting your head, chest, seat up, arch. Exhaling, head is coming in, chin is coming to the chest, tail is tucking, and you're rounding through the back. And just notice all the places in the back that feels a gentle stretch. Again, massaging the spine, lifting the head, chest, seat up, and arch. Exhaling, the head comes in and pelvis comes in, press, round, and squeeze. So you'll continue and slow that movement down. Continue with your cat-cows as you open up and you close it down. So what this is doing is supporting your spinal fluid movement. It's increasing the interoceptive awareness without any kind of emotional overwhelm. Then you'll stop into a neutral position, back into your hands and your knees, and allow yourself to lay down onto your bellies now. As you lay down onto the bellies, just taking a moment, you can turn your head to one side or the other, and just allow the front body to relax onto the mat. As you just continue to breathe in and exhale out, feel the expansion in your back body. The front body is connected to the earth, and the back body can just expand, breathing in and exhaling out. We'll begin to move into a Sphinx pose or even a low cobra. But if we're doing Sphinx, you'll have your elbows underneath your shoulders, and just allow yourself to, if it feels more supportive, to open up the arms a little bit wider, but keep joint over joint. So the elbow underneath your shoulder. And as you feel yourself propping up, allow the pelvis to engage into the floor, into the mat. And that should take some of the pressure off of the low back. If you can bring your legs a little bit closer together, but they can still be wide, hip bone distance apart, maybe lifting your right leg up and reaching it back, and then set your right foot back down. Maybe lift your left leg up, stretch it way back, and then set that back down. And hopefully this has created some space in your back body where you feel your upper body lifting. Now, just taking a moment here in the Sphinx pose, and allow yourself to, as you inhale, to feel the pelvis anchoring more, the tops of your legs anchoring more, and feel the chest and heart open. And as you exhale, remain open in the front body. And as you inhale now, feel the space between the shoulder blades begin to widen, and allow the shoulder blades to tuck into the back pocket, but pressing the pelvis down a little bit more, and just feel that openness of the chest, but feel your back body support. And as you exhale, you still remain open. You're breathing in and you're exhaling out. Now we're going to add a little movement into this Sphinx pose. As you inhale, feel yourself broadening from the back body, opening more in the front body. And as you exhale, just begin to turn your head and gaze out over your left shoulder like you were going to look at your left foot. Then inhale back to the center, exhale completely. The next inhalation, imagine expanding through the chest, opening up and using the muscles of the back body to open the front body. And as you begin your exhale, gently start transitioning your head and looking over your right shoulder as if you were going to look at your right foot. And then allow yourself to inhale back into the center and exhale. Again, inhaling, lifting through the chest, but feel the back body engaging, even the back of your legs beginning to engage. As you exhale, looking over your left shoulder slowly. Inhale, bringing it back to the center. Exhale. Inhale. And as you exhale over the right shoulder, and just feel the gentle stretching in the neck. Inhaling back to the center and exhale. One more time on each side. Inhale, expansion of the heart and chest. Exhaling, looking over the left shoulder. Inhale back to the center and exhale. One more time. Inhale, expansion, but using the back body to help you get the expansion. Exhaling, looking over your right shoulder, and then inhaling back to the center. And now maybe you can stack your forearms or stack your fist and just allow yourself to lay down and just breathe here. Inhaling and exhaling. Now we'll begin to move into a supported child's pose. So with a supported child's pose, what I encourage is to have a bolster, and I have a block. Now place the bolster on top of the block. And so basically the block is going to lift a little space from the bolster, and it's going to be a great place for tucking my arms under. So from your cobra pose, I'm going to press up to hands and knees. I'm going to walk my knees in, bring my big toes together, open the knees wide apart, press my seat toward my heels. And then in the center, I have this bolster for support. Hinging at the hips, allow yourself to fold forward, and then maybe wrapping the arms underneath and turning your head to one side or the other. So you'll rest on one cheek or the other in the child's pose, and just allow yourself to feel the support that is beneath you, underneath your belly. But let yourself breathe in and exhale out. And maybe even try to see if you can get your forehead to touch onto the bolster. You can even have your forearms on the bolster if that's more comfortable for you, but giving yourself some support. But I like to bring awareness to the space behind my forehead. And I just give it a little gentle rocking, a little pressure, and just the breath in and the breath out. And in your child's pose, allowing yourself to feel now your back body expanding. Feel yourself extending through the tail. And as you breathe in and you exhale out, feel all of the back body expanding more as you settle in. Remember, there's no rush. There's no place to go. It's just enjoying this child's pose, breath in and breath out. So by this anchoring and finding this spaciousness inside and grounding, then we prepare ourselves for a little bit more movement. So after a few more breaths, you'll gently taking your arms out and placing your hands onto the floor. Allow yourself to press yourself up if it's available for you to sit up onto your heels. And then we'll begin to remove the bolsters and the props out away from you. And then from a child's pose without support, you'll take a moment here, measure your arms out really long and feel your hands connecting into the earth. And as you feel the hands connecting into the earth, you may take a moment to feel the texture underneath your hands, the texture of your mat or the floor that is beneath the hands. And on your next inhale, gently pulling through the hands, bringing yourself to your hands and your knees. And once you have your hands and your knees, I'll bring my knees a little closer into one another since they were open wide, curling the toes under. I'm going to take a moment here and see about pushing through the hands, lifting my knees, pushing my chest closer to the thighs, allowing the ears to line up with your arms, taking a deep inhale, and as you exhale, gently stretching your heels down toward the floor for a down dog pose. In the down dog pose, just taking a moment, and you may want to feel this natural rhythm of rocking and where you're bending one knee, working opposite heel down, inhale and exhaling, just slowly changing which knee you're bending and which heel you're working down, and allow this gentle movement to move through the hips. Ground it. At any time, you can come back to your hands and knees and get your strength back together and just really feel through the hands all the connection. And then back into the down dog if that's available for you. And then slowly walking your feet up to your hands. And as you walk your feet up to the hands, you may want to widen your stance for stability. And then you'll gently either slide your hands back or you'll be using blocks to bring the floor up to you, whatever you need. Holding on to opposite elbows, allow the head to hang down, and just take a moment here to shake your head yes and no. So the head is hanging down in a standing forward fold. Breath in and breath out. And just to start to notice if you feel rushed to move into the next thing, or can you just be here where you feel the grounding of your feet, the texture underneath your mat, and maybe even the integration of pushing your feet down into that texture of a tightening and a toning of the skin to the muscles and the muscles to the bones, and allowing the legs to begin to fire up, which may allow the upper body to hang down a bit more. Try to bring your awareness into the space behind your forehead and allowing the space behind your forehead to be soft and clear as you hang in. And then very gently releasing the hands. You could use teacup fingers or blocks. And as you inhale, with the power of your legs, maybe extending through the spine with a little support of the fingertips. As you exhale, bringing the hands to your hips, hug your inner elbows in, taking the chin out of the chest. Bring your awareness to the tightness and the tonus of your legs and your feet firmly anchored down. And as you inhale up, allow yourself to inhale with the heart lifting up first. And then when you get to the top, exhaling at the top. Now, since we have a block out, we're going to take a moment to feel a very steady and a stable mountain pose. So I like to use a block in the inner upper thighs. So I'll bring the block into the inner upper thighs and feeling my feet where the outer edges of my feet are parallel with each other. And I'm just going to rock forward, backwards, side to side, and then become aware of the pressure of my muscles connecting into the block. And the feet are pressing down, and there's a push down and maybe a lift up, and I'm squeezing through the block. Now, as I continue to squeeze into the block, pushing down through my feet, then I'll think about drawing my kneecaps up and my thighs up. And then I'll feel from my heels all the way up into my buttocks, a tightening and a toning. Now, as I keep all of that, thinking about this block, think about a Pez dispenser where this block I want to spit out from behind without losing the grounding of my feet, without losing the tightening and the toning of the legs. So I'll take my muscles and I'm going to really try to take the inner thighs and roll the block back and apart. That makes me stick my butt out a lot. And as I stick my butt out a lot, that could be kind of painful. So right away, I want to anchor my tail down, tone my low belly, And as I tone my low belly, pull the belly button up into the throat. But I haven't lost any of the bottom part of this. So the inner thighs are rolling back and apart, tail down. And this is going to create some spaciousness in the sacrum, in the hip area. And then there's this steadiness where you're grounding and bringing our chins parallel with the floor. Take your whole throat and ears and move them back. And then take a moment here to bring awareness into the breath. You may want to turn your palms face out, and this gives us the anatomically correct position. And think about what it would feel like to be in your own true north. So you're bringing all awareness into the center of your chest. But now, keeping all of this, soften just your joints. Allow the joints to soften. And allow yourself to feel the breath, inhaling and exhaling. And from this very grounded position, notice any place of space that you may have created internally, where the breath becomes just a little bit easier, where the eyes can become just a little bit softer. And then very slowly, we're going to take the block out. And what this does is it creates a memory in our physical body that allows us to not use a block, but imagine as if we were using a block. Then from the standing position, you're just going to stand and maybe shake your legs out. Now, I'm moving us into a warrior pose, and I'm going to do a chair option, but you don't have to use a chair. So you can do this however you would like, but I'll have a chair here. I'll show you in just a moment. But if you're choosing to do without a chair, I'll just have you step your feet out wide, and then you can measure out with your arms and get your ankles to line up right underneath your wrist over your ankles, okay? If we're using a chair, we're going to be turning the right foot out 90 degrees and doing a warrior with the right knee bent. So if I were in a chair, I would take the chair and sit in it, and I would sit off to the right side of the chair, squeeze my left booty off of the chair, then sliding. I know you can't really see that very well, but sliding the left leg back, and then turn my pelvis. So we're all in this pose where our right knee is over the heel or ankle. If you're standing there without a chair, straighten your front leg for a second so you don't get this overwhelm in the muscles. But if I'm in the chair, I want to bring my shoulders over my hips. If you're standing, make sure that you keep your shoulders directly over your hips. And what that does is keeps you in the present moment. Now bring all awareness into the back body, where you feel yourself expanding into the low ribs, into the back hidden areas. Now, if you're standing, go ahead and bend your right knee and bring it joint over joint, knee over your heel or ankle. And then we're all going to extend our arms out, gazing out over our right middle finger, breath in and breath out. But bringing awareness to really anchoring the pelvis, feeling both feet strong and steady. And then inhale, straighten your front leg for a second, especially if you're not using a chair. As you exhale, bend your right knee again over the heel or ankle, this time bringing the left fingertips to rest gently on the outer left leg and feel the tone and tightness of that. Turning the right palm facing up. Now, important, we stay as low as we are. Inhale. As you exhale, reaching the right arm out really low, and then sweeping your right arm up. Now, pressing the tips of the shoulder blades into the back of the heart, gazing up at your right fingertips. And then as you exhale, bring it back into center and warrior two. Then if you're standing, you straighten your legs, hands onto your hips, turn your right toes forward. All 10 toes are facing the long edge of the mat. Now turning the left foot out 90 degrees. I'm going to use the chair here as well. So then I got to reset that. But we're all in a left-sided warrior two. So left knee over the heel or ankle. Take my right hip back, anchor the tail, really pull back the back body and expand through the back body. Arms out, breath in and breath out. Set your gaze to a point, which is the left middle finger, inhaling and exhaling. Inhale, and as you exhale, gently rest your right fingertips onto the back of the right leg and notice the tone and tightness of that. Left palm turns face up. And instead of lifting your hips up higher, go lower into your hips. Inhale, reaching left arm out, keeping the hips low, but begin to sweep your left arm up. Feel the power of your right leg. Press the tips of the shoulder blades into the back of the heart. Throw back, ears up, gaze up. Inhale. Exhale, warrior two. Hands onto your hips, straightening front leg. All 10 toes turn forward. Now we're in a standing wide leg. And from your standing wide leg, you can use your chair. You can turn your chair around and use that. But from the standing wide-legged position, inhale, elbows coming in closer together. As you exhale, hinging at your hips, powering through the legs, tightening up the outer seam of the legs. Allow yourself to come into a forward fold. We tend to lean back. I'm going to ask you to bring your hips more forward. And so a wide-legged forward fold. The hands can go down to the floor or blocks. And then take a moment here where you can inhale by pushing through the hands and the feet and find some extension in the spine. As you exhale, allow your head to come down lower. So just like our forward fold where we powered up through the legs, tighten tone, lifting that, allowing your head to hang down toward the floor. Breath in and breath out. You can hold on to opposite elbows. You can, however you want to do this forward fold, but let the power of the legs push up. Feel the sit bones lifting up and moving apart. Feel yourself allowing the upper body to hang down and blood flowing to the brain. Now, pressing the hands into the floor, shoulder distance apart. Take a deep inhale, lift and extend the spine. Hands onto your hips, hug your inner elbows in. And now inhaling, lifting up with the heart, and then you can heel toe your feet together. Then standing with your feet about hip bone distance apart, I'm going to turn my toes out slightly, prayer hands into the heart center. So this may or may not be in your practice. We're going to come down into a squatting position. And from the squatting position, think about really, and so you could do this with the wall. You could have a block underneath you to simulate the squatting position, but allow the weight of the pelvis to anchor down. Allow the feet to feel your feet in the ground and see what you can do about bringing the shoulders back over your heart. So I anchor through the tail, lift up through the heart, and have the breath moving into all the back body space that supports the openness of the chest. Breath in and breath out. Now, very slowly, you'll allow the hands to go down toward the floor, and then you'll bring your booty down to the floor. So not so bad, right? And then a seated forward fold. So Paschimottanasana. Actually, we're going to do a wide-legged seated forward fold. So you did a wide-legged stance. I'm going to open up the legs wide, but not too wide, because we'll hold this for a few moments. You can have the bolster in the center, and you can do the bolster the way that you had your supported child's pose, where I might have a little lift. So I have the block, the bolster. There's a little lift in there, so that would be helpful where if I wanted to tuck, hinge from the hips, folding forward, tucking the arms around, and just allow yourself to breathe here. So wide-legged forward fold and having the stretch in the inner thighs. You're staying there. I'm getting up. So you're just breathing in and exhaling out there. If it's too much behind your knees, you can bring your legs a bit closer together, or you can even offer a little bend into your knees. But just allowing yourself in this forward fold to breathe in and to breathe out, and bring awareness into the back body space. That every time you breathe in, you feel your belly moving toward the bolster, but you also feel the backside broadening. Breath in and breath out. So just a few breaths here, inhaling and exhaling. And then very slowly, you'll peel your hands out, lifting your head and chest, extending through the spine. And then bring the shoulders very so slowly back over your hips. Then I'll set my bolster off to the side. We'll be using that for Shavasana. Placing my block off to the side. So support underneath your knees. So I'm going to slide my hands underneath my knees, lean back, and that helps me after all that wide-legged stuff. Then bring the soles of my feet together. And this is not Baddha Konasana. This is a little bit different. So I'm going to encourage the heels to get further away. And then from here, my prayer hands, wherever my fingertips are, that's where I'd like my toes to be. So you can see it's not with the heels tucked in, but it's a little further out. And now I'm going to allow myself, this is a pose of surrender. So I inhale, I create the length in the spine. And as I exhale, the deep hinge in my hips, the lengthening through the spine. But then at a certain point, I want to round my back. I think of Kamasana, the turtle. So let your forehead, if it were able to rest in the soles of the feet. And as you are here, can you feel the shoulders just surrender? If this is a surrendering pose, it's a forward fold, but let the shoulders drape down to the floor. Let your forehead drape down, and just maybe even feeling a little bit of spaciousness in the neck as the head hangs down. The breath in and the breath out. Sometimes this could be a little uncomfortable in the low back. So take a moment here and see if you can actually feel this, where you draw the navel into the spine. And so it creates this little cushion and allows the lower back to soften and relax a bit here. And every time you feel a little sensation in the low back, if you just draw the navel in toward the spine, it gives you some support from the front in. And just breath in and breath out. I imagine always like a little pillow that's going toward the low spine from the front, and it allows my backside to broaden and expand. And then the space between my eyebrows, I keep lifting up, but you're really just hanging out there, letting your eyes soften, letting your shoulders drape down, letting the forehead eventually make contact with the arches of the feet. And breath in, breath out. When the time is right, you'll gently inhale, lifting your head and chest, and then slowly sliding the shoulders back over the hips. You'll help your knees come back together and scooching toward the front of the mat. And then I like to go down real slow because I articulate each vertebra, but up to you. I can meet you on the ground, but I want to roll down slowly. So just support yourself. But I want to be aware, like a strand of pearls, the places of my back, how it comes down, and I feel it. Then the feet, like we began, the feet are hip bone distance apart. There's this little arch in the low back, and all I do is engage pressure into my feet, and I feel the low back touch down. So I want to go back to that little bit of rocking motion. And just rocking through there, slowing it down, each little rock, where I spend a little time, and I feel that. I had promised you guys that we would do a kidney press, but we're going to move it to this afternoon a little bit. So then we stop with rocking motion of the pelvis and draw the knees up into your chest, and then give your knees a good old squeeze your throat, squeeze your face, make a yucky face that nobody can see, squeeze it all tight. Take a deep inhale, and as you exhale, release your legs out, arms out, palms up, lay back. I'm getting up, you stay there, and just settle in and settle back for just a moment, and just feel the ground that's beneath you. Maybe you don't even have any support that's under there right now, but just feeling any of the places that your body's contacting, maybe through your heels, maybe the calf muscles touch down somewhere, and just feel how your toes just can fall out to the sides. And allow yourself to settle in and settle back for just a few moments of stillness, so that this practice, if whatever it may have opened up, it was a very short practice, but it's still powerful, still opening up a bit of energy and just movement in general. And as you settle in and you move into the body becoming a bit more still, the eyes soft or closed, your choice. And just feeling how from the bottom up, the body begins to settle in and settle back. And as you feel that settling in and settling back, starting to move up through the arms, through your chest, soft, maybe even becoming aware of the pulsation of your own heart. Letting the breath soften, letting the shoulders soften, and even the back of your skull is supported and you feel the contact of the earth beneath it. And it's just breath in and breath out, bringing all awareness to the space behind your forehead and allowing that space to become clear and soft. Just breath in and breath out, clear and soft. As your back body settles in, the front body softening. Breath into any space. Exhale, releasing. Just a few more breaths as you feel yourself melting into all the support that's beneath you. Beginning to bring awareness into the breath, awareness into every inhalation, awareness into every exhalation. Allow every inhalation to bring energy, to rejuvenate. Allow every exhalation to cleanse and to release. So every inhalation coming in and bringing energy, every exhale is removing anything that no longer serves us. As you continue to bring the conscious breath into the body, becoming aware of your physical body, the connections, the places that are connected into the earth, becoming aware of the fingers, becoming aware of your toes, a little movement in the fingers, a little movement in your toes. And taking a moment for a full body stretch, stretching out through your arms, stretching out through your legs. And as you take this deep body stretch, slowly beginning to bend your knees, drawing the heels closer to your bottom where the feet are on the floor. And taking a deep inhale, and as you exhale, rolling over to your right side and allow yourself to curl up in a little tiny ball. Just be there for just a moment, the breath in and the breath out. And when the time is right, you'll gently turn toward the floor using your hands, and you'll gently press yourself up into a seated position. Let your head be the last thing to come up. Allow the eyes to continue to be soft, the breath to continue to be easy. The breath in and the breath out. And noticing any space by noticing where the ease of the breath is. The breath in and the breath out. And we'll honor this practice of yoga together by drawing the hands into the heart center, letting the chest lift brightly. After your next exhale, let's inhale to begin. Ooh. Bowing your head to your heart center, acknowledging the beauty and the light that shines within. We bow to each other with namaste. Thank you so much. You can stay there in your Shavasana if you'd like, but we'll be back at, it's exactly 1. So we'll be back at 2, and have a good lunch, and I'll see you then. Thanks.